Hey everyone, and welcome to the WoolJewel Podcast. I'm Caitlin, and this is my knitting podcast. I think we're on episode 33 now. It has been quite a while since my last episode. I've had a couple uploads and live things since then, but I think my last actual podcast episode was at the end of August, so I took a good 4.5 months off. This was unplanned, but life just completely changed for me in the fall. Okay, not completely, but my schedule changed completely, unexpectedly, and I also had some just personal stuff I needed to deal with. So yeah, I'm back, and I think I have quite a few new subscribers since my last episode, so I will just take a second to reintroduce myself. So I'm Caitlin, and I live in Germany with my husband and my cat, and I am super into knitting sweaters, so most of the projects I share on here are going to be garments. I'm also learning how to write knitting patterns and getting into designing. I hate to call myself a designer yet, so but that's something that I am aspiring to do right now, so I'm learning a lot. Knitting kind of started as a hobby for me, but now it is more of a way of life. There's hardly a day that goes by that I'm not knitting something. But professionally, I am a musician. I have a master's degree in viola performance, so that's kind of my thing. But I've had little opportunity to do that in the area where we are right now because we're here for my husband's job. So I started this podcast as a way to share more about my knitting life and get to know other knitters and occupy my time a little bit, because when we first moved here, there was nothing for me to do that I could find, and I didn't have a job, so yeah. And now I'm working, I tripled the amount of hours that I'm working this fall, which is a big reason why I had to take a little break from the podcast. So yeah, yay, I'm here. It feels super weird to sit here in front of the camera and do this, but I'm doing it. So yeah, I'm really glad to be sitting down and doing this finally. Finally. So I have quite a bit of housekeeping to get through since it's been a while. Some knit-alongs that have wrapped up during my break, and then a new knit-along that just started. So let me talk about those real quick. First off, I had a year-long knit-along for socks called the Any Sock Will Do KALS. My second year I've done it, and I have a little prize to give away. So Allison from the For Knit Sakes podcast sent me a little project bag that she sewed herself. I'm gonna go grab it because I forgot it, because I'm unprepared, because I haven't done this in forever. This is the project bag that Allison sent me. Thank you so much, Allison. She also sent one for me that's green, and it is the perfect sock knitting bag. And the strap is really wide, so it's one of those that feels comfortable, you can put on your wrist and knit. And it's the perfect size for a ball of sock yarn. So I used a random number generator to help me choose the winner. And the winner was post number 2, and that is Maud Vandermeer. So I don't see her actual name, but looks like you're located in the Netherlands. So if you want to send me a message with your address, I will send you this bag and a couple of little fun surprises from me that I'll throw in there. Yeah, so thanks again everyone for participating. And let's talk about the next knit-along that is wrapping up, or did wrap up. So I was asked by Linda of the HipHipBarbaKnit Podcast, she's also Barbanet on Instagram, to host the Anything Icelandic knit-along with her. And I was super, super pumped about this because me and Ben went to Iceland in April, and I brought home tons of lopi and was so excited to knit lopa pesas and all the Icelandic stuff. And unfortunately, that started like right before everything collapsed for me and I didn't podcast for forever. So I'm really sorry, everyone, if you're excited about it, but I hope that you jumped on Linda's podcast and participated over there, because she is actually the one with the thread where you where she was gonna pick a winner. So she had tons of awesome prizes lined up. So I just want to take a second and thank everybody for participating if you did, and I hope that you checked out Linda's podcast while that was happening. Yeah, so I did have a couple projects for that I was working on, even though I obviously didn't talk about it here because I just wasn't here. So I had a Lopapesa yoke I was working on as a gift for my dad, and my husband Ben had started his own Lopapesa, and that was really his project, but I was helping him a lot with it, and we had a whole podcast episode about the math that we did for him on that. But I'll insert a picture of the yoke I made for my dad. So traditionally the Lopapesa is knit from the bottom up, but this was a team effort. I knit the yoke and my sister Allison knit the body and sleeves, and it just made more sense for me to knit it backwards. So I took the pattern and I flipped it on its head and I knit it upside down. So I knit it top to bottom, and then I sent her the yoke to finish to give to our dad. So I'll just put the picture here, my dad wearing it. So that was a Christmas gift for him. Yeah, and I even started a Lopapesa for myself, but there's just very little to show for it. I just didn't have time to do both of those things. So yeah, the Anything Icelandic Cal has come to a close. Thank you everyone again for checking it out, and thank you so much Linda for asking me to co-host it with you, even though I'm literally the worst knit along co-host in the world because I don't have anything together in my life right now. I had the Rhine Backup knit along with Elise from the My Two Tips podcast, and I thought this was such a great idea. Knit a Rhine Backup sweater, because usually, or sometimes it's like too hot to wear your Rhinebeck sweater to Rhinebeck. So we were gonna knit some warmer weather garments as a backup for Rhinebeck. And it was just kind of a casual thing. I don't even remember, honestly, if I had prizes for that. Let me look it up. Just looked it up. I said prizes to be announced. How about this? I'm gonna draw from this thread right now, and I will send you a pattern of your choice on Ravelry. So let's do it. We're drawing a winner right now. There's 25 entries for the Rhine Backup Cal. Thanks guys for participating, even though I've been totally gone. Random number generator, generate post number 23, and that is, oh, you're in Croatia, great. Okay, so the Zenja on Ravelry, Ada or Ada, however you pronounce your name, you have won the Rhine Backup knit along. So send me a message on Ravelry and let me know what pattern you'd like me to send you. Let's say anything under $12 US. How's that? Okay, yay! Oh my god, this is such a mess. Okay. Okay, I think that's all of the knit-alongs that are over. Let's talk about the new knit-along. This actually is a little different because this is a knit-along I'm teaming up with the Wooliers to do a knit-along on Instagram. So this is my first one that is like based on Instagram and not through Ravelry or the podcast. So I thought that doing it just on Instagram would make it easier to handle and a little bit easier to be more interactive. I'm really not very active on Ravelry forums, and I think that they're a little bit less streamlined to use, and so I thought this would be more fun and just easier all around to keep up with. So, because I'm on Instagram all the time. Yes, so I'm doing this with the Wooliers, and it is called the Wooliers WoolJewel Cal, and that is the hashtag. So I met them at Indie Untangled, and I was shopping with my sister Allison, and we were just super into their yarn, and they are a pair of sisters also. And I love that, and I was just really excited to meet them and try their yarn because I'd heard about them online a lot and seen their interviews and stuff, and I just had always wanted to see their yarn in person, and finally I had, and Margot was wearing the Catskills Cabin pullover, which is like a 2-color brioche, just like really simple pullover, and I loved it. So I immediately bought yarn to make that sweater, and then I went back later on in the day and I was like, let's do a knit along, because I figured I was going to be having a knit along for them anyway, and so I just figured, because I was just excited about it, and so I just figured I'd ask them if they wanted to do it with me. So yes, we're hosting this on Instagram. The rules are in a post that I made. It's the picture with 2 skeins of the Wooliers yarn. It's like a black one and a white one. So all the rules are there, but just briefly, you just need to be following both their accounts, and it is like super easy to participate in this because we're accepting basically anything that you hashtag with that. So you can use the Wooliers yarn and or a Wooliers pattern from their 2018 or 2019 patterns. Yeah, so you don't even have to finish your project. You can just make posts of your progress, show us where you're knitting, how you're knitting, what are you knitting, just have fun with it and tag us and use the hashtag, and we're gonna be pulling a winner from the hashtag. Just show us what you're working on with their yarn and or their pattern, so we can check it out. So I am knitting, this is kind of getting into work in progress territory, but I'm knitting the Catskills Cabin pullover, like I mentioned. The reason why whips totally count and you don't have to finish is because you could be knitting a bulky hat and be done in a day and it'll count just as much as this sweater knit on little sock needles. So I don't think I'm even gonna finish my project in time, even though I'm a pretty speedy knitter. I can get more into the details of my project later, but this is going to be running through February 15th, and then we will announce a winner on February 16th on Instagram. Yay! Okay, so knit along stuff is over. Let me just briefly talk about Patreon for a second. So I've had my Patreon going for maybe like, I don't know, less than a year, I think, and I was so touched like every time somebody decided to become a patron. It just meant the world to me. And then now that it's been like 4.5 months without a podcast, I just feel like in good conscience I don't know, I just feel bad about it. Like I feel like if somebody wants to contribute to the podcast in that way, that I should at least be consistent and a little more dependable. And I just can't make that promise right now with the way that my schedule is and just how life is going right now. So I think I'm just gonna shut it down for now. I set it up during a time when I thought that I had all the time in the world to make a podcast every week, or at least like put something out on YouTube all the time. And one of my goals was like, if I reach a certain amount of patronage per video, then like I'll be able to actually work in the time to devote to the podcast, because it would make financial sense for me also. But I got more real work before that became possible. So I just like, yeah, I don't know. It's not that I'm ungrateful. I am like so grateful and touched that anybody cares enough to watch me talk about yarn on YouTube that they want to contribute financially. Like that is so amazing to me. So thank you so much, like from the bottom of my heart, every single person that helped me out on Patreon. I don't want the podcast to feel in any way like an obligation. Like I was starting to feel the guilt kind of pile up the longer that I wasn't podcasting, and that made me want to put it off more in a way, just because like I just didn't want to face it. And so I don't know, that might sound weird, but I think that part of it was because I just felt like I owe people something. you know. And the podcast is really just, it's like an outlet for me and a way for me to make friends. And so I don't know. I think it's just gonna be best if I just stop. But I do want to say, like, my computer totally broke over Thanksgiving, and it was a really costly repair, but cheaper than buying a new computer. So actually, I had been saving the Patreon funds, just waiting because I knew something was going to come up like that. And so actually that was a huge, huge help getting my computer fixed. And part of the reason I can podcast today is because I was able to get my computer fixed, and that helped pay for it. So yeah, thank you guys. You guys are the part of the reason that I am able to return to podcasting, and just another huge thank you for contributing and just letting me know that you like the podcast enough to contribute in that way. So we'll see what it does. The page might still be there, but I'm not going to be posting videos that charge the patrons anymore. So moving on. All right, I always start with talking about my finished objects. So let me show you a sweater that I super love. So this is the Magnolia by Camilla Vad, I believe. And this is in the Laine magazine number 4. I finished this either at the end of November or right beginning of December. So this was kind of my Thanksgiving project. Ben and I wanted to do a little vacation for Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving's really close to one of our anniversaries. Yes, we have several. So that's one of our anniversaries, and we wanted to take a long weekend for Thanksgiving, and so we went to Garmisch, which is an area in Germany that's like super mountainous, and Zugspitze is the highest elevation in Germany, and so we went up to the top of the mountain, and yeah, this was my project that weekend. So lots of nice memories tied into this sweater, and it was a surprisingly quick knit. I used US 5 needles, I think, and I think the sweater calls for like a sport weight yarn or a fingering and a strand of mohair. I actually used a fingering weight yarn that's pretty fuzzy, so I kind of still got that effect, but it has like a really, it's like a little bit see-through. So I could have gone a little bit thicker, but I figure since the yarn has a little bit of fuzz, it would kind of fill in the gaps, and it pretty much does. So yeah, this, I don't know, this just went so fast. We took a road trip, so I got a lot of car knitting in. The lace was addicting. I was getting a little bored of stockinette. It's a top down, and so all the interesting stuff happens at the end, which made it go by really fast. Usually all the interesting stuff is in the yoke, and then at the end you're just knitting endless stockinette and it feels like it's never gonna end, but this was kind of a nice way to switch it up. So I felt like, you know, after all the stockinette, like I wasn't sick of it because I started with the stockinette, and then at the end we got this fun lace. I didn't do the baubles that were in the pattern because I hadn't done that type of bauble specifically, but I'd done one similar to it, like one where you're knitting into a stitch a bunch of times, and then you slip all of the stitches over this one stitch, and so it kind of like gathers them onto this one, into this one little ball. But those usually leave a gap for me on either side, and so I decided to just do a bauble that I knew would work really well. And the bauble instructions I used were used in my Hovera cardigan. It's a yellow cardigan, and then it has, the back is just like covered in baubles. Like it's a cabley, bobbly pattern, but I loved the bauble that she used in that pattern. So I just took that and I put it on here. And I think that they're a little bit more pronounced than what the other ones would look like, and so I'm really happy with it. Yeah, this is one of my more wearable sweaters, and I think it's really pretty and it's more fitted, and so this is just like very different from what I usually knit, like silhouette wise, and I don't wear a ton of lace, says the girl wearing an all over lace pullover. But yeah, I don't know. I think I enjoy wearing cables more, but I enjoy knitting lace more. So I'm just kind of like figuring out how I'm gonna work that into my wardrobe a little bit more, because I want to enjoy knitting my projects just as much as I want to enjoy wearing them. So I'm still kind of figuring that out. But I did love this. I just think that it's so pretty and it's really wintry. I love the like fuzz factor. Oh, I forgot to say this is Triskelion yarn that I got at Wild and Woolly in London in the Ember's End colorway. And it is, I think it's Gotland wool. I want to say it's 75% Gotland wool. If I find the tag, or if I find the label, I'll put the information below. But it's the 4-ply Scylfing, I believe. So if you're interested in the yarn, just check below and I will put that there. Okay, speaking of lace pullovers and what I'm wearing, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen that this is my newest pattern I'm working on. So it's not released yet, but this is a lace pullover I knit. It's a little boxy and it's got a drop shoulder and it's 3/4 length. And yes, it's cropped. So I'm pretty sure every pattern I put out is gonna be cropped because it's just what I like to wear. Also, I'm short, so you know, cropped is like normal length for me. Yeah, so I started this several months ago, and yeah, I think I started this for the Rhine Backup knit along, which was like so long ago, and just stuff happened and I just didn't have time to finish. Part of it was because I knit the front and the back panel and then I couldn't decide what I wanted the sleeves to look like, so I just kind of set it aside for a while and never picked it back up until a few weeks ago, or maybe last week. It didn't take me long to figure out how I wanted the sleeves to look. So I figured it out and I knit them and I'm working on the pattern now and it should be tech edited soon. So this is knit with Madelinetosh Work Sock, which is one of my favorite yarns of all time, especially as far as like superwash goes. It is super tough. So it's 75% merino and 25% nylon, which is quite a bit of nylon, and it's called Work Sock, and I've said this before, but it is not sock yarn, as in it's not fingering weight. It is a super dense, heavy sport weight bordering on DK. I have knit a DK weight sweater, or yeah, a DK sweater pattern with Work Sock and got gauge perfectly for the DK gauge. So I'll show you that in a second. It's sitting right here. So I think if you wanted to knit this pattern, I would suggest using a DK yarn over a sport, because usually sport weight yarns are a little thinner than this, I think. So, you know, somewhere in there, like sport DK-ish would work out. I think you'd get gauge. Also, it's a super holey lace, so I think it's really forgiving in terms of blocking. If you knit it up and it's not the size that you wanted, it would be super easy to just pin it to the exact size that you want because it would stretch really far. I actually blocked mine without stretching at all. I didn't even pin it. I just wet blocked it and laid it flat because I didn't want it to grow more than the yarn would naturally, being a superwash. I am hoping to release this in March, maybe around EYF time. So I'm gonna get it tech edited, and a lot of you lovely viewers test knitted my last sweater pattern, the Louis, and I promise this next experience should be much smoother because I'm getting the tech editing done before I send it to testers. I don't know what I was thinking having it done at the same time last time. That was not smart. But like I said, I'm still learning. about how to be a designer, so figuring it out. But yeah, so I'm hoping to get this tested soon, and then I will release it as soon as possible. So stay tuned for more info on my sweater. I'm actually not gonna stand up and show you the whole thing because I'm just kind of like sneak peeking it right now, and then when it gets closer to when I'm ready to release it, I'll like post all the photos and wear it for real for you guys so you can see it. But I'm calling this pullover Leclerc, and somehow all of my pattern names are turning out to be French. That is not intentional. I'm calling this Leclerc because Leclerc is a composer. He was a violinist. He's from the Baroque era. As a musician, I spent a lot of my time studying Baroque music specifically. So I don't know. Leclerc came to mind because he's a violinist like me, and he made his living making lace. So I thought it just seemed to fit because this is like the most lacy thing I've probably ever knit, and it's covered in lace. And the back is all lace too. So meet Leclerc. Yes, I think that's all I have to say about it right now. I can share more details as it gets closer to release. So the other sweater I knit out of work sock is the bubbly sweater, or the bubble sweater by Stephen West. So I test knit this for him, and I super love it. It's the best. The color combination I am super thrilled with, and I feel like I shouldn't even take credit for it because I ordered these colors online and they looked different on my screen than they did when they showed up. So I just kind of set them aside and thought I like the colors, they're not what I expected, so I'm not gonna use them for what I originally intended, and I set them on my shelf and kind of forgot about them until now. And I knit the sweater. And when he sent the email out for the test knitting, I loved the sweater, but I knew it would be silly of me to order a sweater's quantity of DK weight just to do the test. Like, I was like, I'm not gonna agree to another test knit unless I like already have the yarn. So I kind of went for a stash dive to see what I had that I could use, and this is what I came up with. So the cool thing about work sock is that it comes in these huge hanks. They're like 200 grams. So this only took one hank of the peach color and 2 hanks of the like minty gray color. And the sweater that I'm wearing, the one that I knit, like I have a 36-inch bust, and this has a lot of positive ease, and this took less than 2 hanks of it. And yes, they're 200 grams, but they're still priced the same as your typical 100-gram hank of hand-dyed yarn. So I don't know. I just think it's a great deal. I am not sponsored by Madelinetosh, but I just love them, and I like love their yarn, and I think work sock, it's like a super economic solution. If you want some hand-dyed yarn, it's a really good deal because you're getting like tons of yardage of like a sport or DK in one hank. So there you go. Yeah, this was a 3-hank sweater. So I did think I was gonna be a little bit low on the gray when I started out because I only had the 2 hanks, and so I made the fold over neck 2 colors. Like I did the inside, the peach color, just because I was worried about running out of the gray, but the pattern has the whole thing just as one color, so that's just a change I made. I didn't run out of the gray, but you know, like I said, as I was starting out, I had no idea how much yardage I was gonna have. And then I thought I would do contrasting cuffs. Keep in mind, so the pattern does say just like knit to desired length, and so my desired length, which is usually shorter than most people because I'm only like 5'1" or 2, so and I like things slightly cropped usually. So yeah, I mean, it might take you a little more yarn. Let me get back to the actual talking about the pattern. The yoke was super, super fun. This bubble stitch is so addicting and super fun. And I think that this is like the greatest color work that you can do that's not stranded. It's basically stockinette plus this one like easy little thing that you stitch into the row. You knit into the stitch that's several rows below, and like, so it just feels like knitting. Like, it's just so easy, and it's such an awesome effect for how easy it is. So yeah, I don't know, this was just so much fun to knit. I am already thinking about color combinations for another one. It's very rare that I knit the same thing twice, so I imagine that if I do make another one, it's gonna be a while, but I'm still excited about it and still thinking about color combinations after finishing. I did modify the bottom. I just knit a normal ribbed hem, so the pattern calls for the folded over hem just like the neck does and the cuffs do. But I just thought the length that I made mine, like being slightly cropped, I thought it was just gonna add a little bit more bulk in a place where I didn't want more bulk, and so I just omitted that. So yeah, that's my bubble sweater. Let's talk about my works in progress. I have 3 sweaters on the needles, 4 sweaters on the needles. My first one I want to show you is, well, I already pulled it out, but my Catskills cabin pullover. I already told you the story about meeting the Wooliers and the knit along I'm having with them. But I just want to get a little more into detail about the project itself. Oh my gosh, it's so squishy. So this yarn is there, okay, I had it in my brain, it was close, but I just wanted to look it up to be extra sure. So the white, or like cream color, is called Northeast 1. This is a single ply fingering weight, and so I think all of these are undyed, and so they're just natural colors, and so the actual fiber blend is slightly different in them. So this one is 54% alpaca and 46% merino. So it's got a little bit of a halo. I love it. And then this one is kind of a brown black, and it is called North 1. And it is 60% alpaca and 40% wool. So yeah, they're like pretty close, like they feel pretty much the same. I think they just have different names because they're different blends of fibers. Yeah, so like I said, I saw Margot, who is one of the Wooliers, wearing this at Indie Untangled. I loved it, and it has been a good while since I have knit anything brioche. I kind of never jumped on that like brioche bandwagon. I mean, I've done brioche stuff, but I feel like there was a point where like everyone was doing all the brioche things and everyone was obsessed with it, and like, I don't mind brioche, but I don't know, I wasn't super into it. I think people were just super into it because like it's not difficult to do, but the effect you get is super awesome, and so it became really addicting for a lot of people. I don't dislike it. I was just like never, oh my gosh, brioche, like everyone was freaking out about it. So I figured, why not knit a whole sweater out of brioche, because it's just like been a while for me since I did anything brioche, and I think most brioche that I did was just like a section in a shawl, and I never knit like a big thing out of it. And there's nothing better than tons of squishy brioche, because yeah, I think it's gonna feel really nice to wear and be really cozy. And I still have to decide which side I want my main color to be. I think I like the lighter side because it looks more contrasty, I guess. Like when it's this way, I feel like lighter color doesn't pop as much, and so it just looks less contrasty. Like I think that on this side, the dark color sticks out more than, I don't know. What do you think? I think in a perfect world, I will weave in the ends so perfectly that I can just make the whole sweater reversible and not have to make that decision. I had trouble getting gauge with this. I am knitting quite a bit looser than the suggested gauge, and so I decided not to go down to even tinier needles. I think I'm using a 3.25 millimeter, and these are my highest sharps, and I kind of just like these needles, and so I just decided I was going to knit it on these needles. I looked at the gauge, or I looked at the stitch count for the smallest size in the pattern, and with my gauge and that stitch count, I'm gonna have a few inches of positive ease. So normally I will knit like a medium, but I've been finding lately that my gauge is always bigger than the pattern, and it used to be the opposite. I used to be super tight knitter, and now I guess I'm knitting a lot looser, which is good. Apparently that's like better for the yarn because you're not stretching it out and it's easier on your hands. But I'm finding it frustrating that I have to go down like so many needle sizes now. And it doesn't seem like I'm like that crazy loose of a knitter. So I don't know what's going on. But I didn't want to keep going down needle sizes, and I didn't want to force myself to knit tighter. So I just decided to go down the size of the sweater, and we'll just see how it fits. I don't know. I tend to also choose patterns to knit that will look good fitted or oversized. And that's kind of the great thing about women's sweaters. Most of them will work fitted or with lots of positive ease. Like any of those looks can work for a lot of sweater shapes. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think that I've gotten away with not swatching and not caring about that so much. Like I will always tell everyone else to do a gauge swatch. But that's mostly because I think other people care more about fit than I do. But I don't do that. A lot of times, I guess I gauge swatch a lot more now than I used to, but some of my best and most worn sweaters are ones that I didn't do a gauge swatch for. So, I don't know. Stuff just works out like that sometimes. Okay, yes, so that is the Catskills Cabin Pullover with the Wooliers yarn, and let me just say one more time how nice the yarn is. Did I even say it the first time? I'm saying it now. It's awesome. I mean, it is soft and squishy in the hank, and they come in these cute little hanks. Oh my gosh, they're so cute and squishy. I wish I had one right here to show you. But somehow when you knit it up, it's like even softer. It's like magic. I don't understand. It's amazing. So yeah. Next is the Balloon Pullover by PetiteKnit. Yes, so Ben and I went to a yarn shop called Strickpunkt, which is not in Garmisch. It was, oh my gosh, I'm terrible. I don't even remember what town it was in. We took a little 20-minute drive. More now on Staffelsee. That's where it is. But this shop was so beautiful and well set up, and they had lots of beautiful yarns. So there was this whole corner full of Isager yarns. And yeah, so I kind of went in there thinking I really wanted a sweater's quantity of a fingering and a mohair to be held together, because I feel like there's a lot of patterns out right now that have that combination. And I didn't have a pattern in mind, but I figured I would find something easily. And so I went in there and I grabbed a few hanks of this for my fingering. So that is the Isager Ecoline 100% undyed Alpaca 2. And this is super soft and super drapey and 2-ply. It's 50% alpaca and 50% wool. And these are 50-gram hanks. So I got some of this, and then I got some of the silk mohair. And so I got this like cream color, and I thought it would be super pretty to get this kind of like pale gold color to go with it. And this is gonna sound really nerdy, but I got these colors because they look like my cat. My cat is a flame point Himalayan, so she's mostly white, but she has like bits of like a pale orange like on her face and ears, and so yeah, that's why I got these colors, and she kind of looks like this color. And she's super fluffy, and this is a super fluffy sweater. So yeah, so I just started kind of searching around on Instagram and Ravelry, and I remembered I'd saved this. It is called the Balloon Sweater by PetiteKnit, and I had it saved on Instagram. And so I have the body done. It's a super oversized sweater, and the sleeves are just kind of giant. You just knit these big old tubes and then decrease rapidly at the cuff, and so it should have this big balloon sleeve, and I'm super excited about it. Like, I think it's just gonna be the comfiest, fluffiest sweater. I'm really pumped about it. But it is like all stockinette in the round, and so I'm just like getting a little bit bored on this first sleeve. I put this marker here when I had about 5 inches to go. So just a little tip, if you are knitting something that is supposed to have that balloon effect, or it's going to decrease rapidly, and you want that kind of like blousing effect to happen, be sure to knit longer. If you want your cuff to start right here, when you're knitting your sleeve, make sure that you knit past that before you start the cuff, depending on how wide the sleeve is or how dramatic of an effect you want, because you need some extra fabric for the length of the coming in part, if that makes sense. So you want to knit further so that it can come in, and then you knit your cuff. Yep, that's just a little tip if you're doing that, so you don't make the same mistake I did. I have one more sweater and I will go grab it. So for this next sweater, I apologize in advance for how messy it is because I have ends like all over the place. This is the Full Moon Jumper by Wool and the Gang, knit with crazy sexy wool. And it is super bulky. Oh my gosh. This is like the bulkiest sweater I've ever knit. I'm actually very surprised I made it this far without knitting a super bulky sweater. I actually had a sweater's quantity of this wool in a different color that I tried to design something with, and it was just a massive fail, and so I frogged it, and it's just been sitting on the shelf. I haven't decided if I want to try designing something again or just picking a pattern. So that one's just hibernating, but this wool came from Melissa, who is Skananigans on Instagram, and she got it from Celeste from Yarn to Table, and I love both of those ladies, so thanks. So Celeste was de-stashing, so she gave this to Melissa, and then Melissa decided I wasn't her color or something, and so she sent it to me. So thank you both ladies for deciding that you didn't want this, because it is so very much my color, and I'm super pumped about it. I knit the front and back of this in 3 knitting sessions. Like, that's how fast it went. And this needle size, what are these, are US 19. Like, they're just massive. I actually finished one sleeve, and then I put the sweater on. And since this is a drop shoulder sweater, there was just like a lot of bulk in my armpit, and I like couldn't even put my arms down. I was like Randy in A Christmas Story. Like, I was looking in the mirror, I was like, I can't put my arms down. So I had to take the sleeve off. So this is all bottom up and knit in 4 pieces. So there's a front and a back, and the 2 sleeves are knit from the bottom up. So I just, I had the seam on there, or I had the sleeve on there, and I just undid the seam and took it off, and I frogged it back down so that I could get rid of a few increases that were close to the armpit, because I thought, because as I held my arm out like this, it just kind of like went like that. Like, there was like a huge, it looked like I had wings. Like, it was crazy. So I frogged back, and I think I'm just gonna knit the sleeve with a few less increases. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I think it's still gonna be a little bit bulky in the armpit just because that's like the nature of like giant wool. And I think honestly I could have gone up a size. I was worried about a bulky sweater with too much positive ease just like being way too huge on me, but I think that it makes more sense for it to have positive ease so that, I don't know, because I think like a tight, it's not gonna be tight, but like a tighter, heavy sweater can be kind of uncomfortable, and you wanna feel like you have room to move around. So I feel like I could have gotten a couple inches bigger. All right, my camera battery just died, so I gave it a quick charge, and I'm back. Yeah, I frogged back to get rid of some of the increases on the sleeve, and I'm just gonna knit a skinnier sleeve. I'm gonna see if that gets rid of some of the bulk under the arm. And yeah, I thought about just frogging the whole thing. I mean, it was such a quick knit. I thought about frogging the whole thing and just making it slightly bigger to make it so that the bulk was a little further down from my armpit and not like all squished in there. Maybe that's why it felt so crazy. But I don't care that much about it. So I'm just gonna leave the body as is and see what I can do by just fixing the sleeve. So thanks again, Melissa and Celeste. I'm super pumped to have this, and seeing how quick it went, I'm much more motivated to pick up my other sweaters quantity of Crazy Sexy Wool and knit another one, or knit another sweater with the same yarn. I have one more sweater whip to show you, and that is the Umbra, I think, pullover, and that is one of the sweaters from the Nightshades collection. So Harrisville Designs just came out with this yarn Nightshades a few months ago, and it is all American black Cormo yarn with different colors marbled into the black. So here's what I picked up at Rhinebeck. Sorry that the label got all squished so it doesn't look that great, but this is black marbled with yellow. So it kind of gives off like a slight chartreuse kind of effect, just the way the yellow looks against the black, and I love that so much. So I got one skein at Rhinebeck because I had already purchased way too many sweaters quantities to justify another one, even though I really wanted it. But Harrisville Designs posted that they had just restocked all their Nightshades, and so I just jumped on it and got a few more skeins because the sweater I want to make only needs 5 skeins. So I already had this one, so I didn't need too much more. Yeah, so I just got it in the mail the other day, and I've been super excited to cast on that yarn since I picked it up. I saw they were having the Sable knit along. So Sable is one of the pullovers that was also released with the collection. Let's look up the designer, because I need to look everything up because I am unprepared. Whitney Hayward. So she designed the Sable pullover, and I wanted to do the knit along because it seems like not too many people are doing it, and if you win the knit along then you get a sweaters quantity of Nightshades, which is super tempting. But I just liked the Umbra pullover much better. It has moss stitch, which is one of my favorites, and a cable pattern that goes down the front and the back. And it has a split hem, and it has a high-low hem, and it's just like all the things I love, and like kind of a mock turtleneck. So it's like everything I love all in one pullover. So I just decided I'm gonna knit that pullover and not do the knit along. So because I already have a sweaters quantity, I don't need another one. Let somebody else have the chance to win it. I cast it on today, so I don't have a whole lot. So I'm just starting the ribbing at the bottom, and I think it's awesome. There's 4 inches of ribbing at the hem on the front, so I love that it's a super long split hem. It's gonna look really cool. And I love Cormo, you guys. I've bought so much Cormo yarn at India Untangled and at New York Sheep and Wool. So it's the year of the Cormo for me, I've decided. 2019, well, 2018 was the year of buying Cormo, and 2019 is the year of knitting the Cormo, because I know everyone says this, but I really need to knit for my stash this year. This is like super out of hand. I have a ridiculous amount of sweaters quantities. For a while, I went through this phase of buying single skeins of fun speckly yarn to use in like all these Stephen West things where you're like mixing yarns and colors and stuff and like scrappy projects, and that was working for a while, and then I ended up with way too many single skeins of stuff. And so then I decided, okay, I'm just gonna be more careful, and I'm only gonna buy sweaters quantities and not just buy like impulsive single skein things. And so then I started buying only sweaters quantities, and now I have tons of sweaters quantities, and I bought them faster than I can knit them. So that's a problem. So I am working on that. So some of my goals for 2019 are to knit more of my sweater quantity stash, de-stash things that I don't need or want anymore, and also design more things with those sweaters quantities. I would love to create some designs with yarn I already have instead of having to like buy yarn specifically for a design, just because it's not very cost effective. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money to put out a pattern, like paying a tech editor, and then for some things I have to get them professionally graded just because I don't have the experience. I don't trust myself to get for some sweaters, I don't trust myself to do the grading for all of the sizes. So that's an added cost. Speaking of which, my Louis pattern will have the larger sizes added by spring. That should be done really soon. So that was something I wanted to do last year, but I just wasn't able to do it. I really, really wanted to do it myself and not pay somebody to grade the pattern, but after trying multiple times, I just like wasn't sure about it. So I finally saved up a little bit, and I have hired somebody to grade the pattern for the larger bust sizes. So I'm super excited about that. Yes, that was a big tangent. So I'm done talking about works in progress now. So I'm going to get into Block It Out. This will be some more like just stuff talking about knitting related stuff and not necessarily projects. So if you're here just for the projects, I'll see you next time, and thank you so much for coming back and watching or checking me out the first time. I really appreciate it. So yeah, the first thing I want to do is kind of recap my 2018. I sat down and tried to figure out how many projects I had from last year. Okay, so in 2018, I knit 18 garments. All of them were sweaters or tops except for one, and one of those was a little pair of shorts I made as ballet warm-ups. So 17 sweaters, a pair of shorts. I sewed 4 garments, so I made 2 dresses, a t-shirt for my husband, and some pants for myself. I also I sewed 2 ballet skirts. For accessories, I made some shawls and hats and mitts and socks, cowl. So for all of those types of accessories, I knit 8 of those. For like miscellaneous projects, I had my knit taxidermy fox. I knit a little bag for my friend Michelle. I had some hand spun. I did a chain ply for the first time, and I think for that I spun like 115 grams, and I sewed some zipper pouches, and I made 3 embroidery hoops, little ones. So that's kind of some other stuff. I have a total of 41 projects, which I think is pretty great. I have no idea how many I did in 2017, so I can't really compare because I think before I was only counting knit stuff. So I'm pretty excited that I was able to expand my crafting a little bit into like sewing and embroidery. That's been really fun. And I mean, with limited time that I have as is, like I feel like I hardly have enough time to knit. So I have even less time to devote to like other types of crafts, but I don't know. I'm not trying to divide my time any certain way. I just kind of do what I feel like doing in the moment. So I'm just gonna try to keep doing that. I do wanna set aside time for designing because that's something I wanna seriously pursue a little bit more. But in terms of like happy crafting and knitting and stuff, I don't wanna put any pressure on myself for this year to like beat myself from last year in a certain category or like make myself do something, because this is just like something I need to be relaxing and fun, especially now that I'm working like 3 times as much as I used to. So yeah, so you're not gonna get any like serious resolutions or goals from me other than trying to design more, trying to knit from stash more, but that should be fun because I love the sweaters quantities that I have. I bought them because I love them. Yeah, I think that's about it. So no major resolutions this year. But yeah, so I think that I need to address this discussion that's been going on in the knitting community about diversity and inclusivity and exclusivity and race, primarily on Instagram, and there is a big thread on Ravelry. So if you're unaware, I have put some links in my description below. There should be a link to the Ravelry Forum if you want to read up on people's experiences, how racism in our community has been affecting them, and a few people on Instagram who have been doing some really emotional work, sharing their own experiences and the experiences of others to shed some light on what has been going on that a lot of people have been completely unaware about. And I am ashamed to say that I am one of those people. I realize that a lot of people are not going to like that I'm talking about this on YouTube, but I do want to say that I love knitting because I love the people who knit. I love meeting other people who are interested in the same things that I am interested in. So to me, this is not just a political thing. It is the very heart of why I created the podcast. I wanted to create the podcast primarily to connect with other knitters. I want to meet y'all, and y'all means all. I want everyone to feel welcome and included here. And I realize that this is such a tiny corner of the internet. I have a very small platform, but I do have it. It just really hurts to hear that there are so many incredible makers out there, particularly people of color, who do not have that warm and welcoming and friendly experience that a lot of us do get from this community. It really sucks that so many of us were just unaware, and like there is no excuse for that. I want everyone to know that you are welcome here and you are welcome to reach out in any way that you want. You can send me a DM, you can comment on my video, or reach out to me on Instagram. I also want you to know that if I've ever done anything hurtful or anything that makes you feel unwelcome, if you choose to let me know, I am there to listen. I am there to hear you. I think the best thing I can do right now is to send you to the people who are doing this work already and see the stories that they have posted, their own, and also stories of other people. I will leave links in the description below. I will just make the list down there because I don't want to leave anyone out as I'm talking, because I tend to do that. So I want to say thank you to those who are doing that work to educate us. You know, it is not their job to do that, but they are doing it, and it is valuable information. You know, when somebody is telling you that they're hurt, you don't get to tell them that they're wrong. It's just as simple as that. There is a lot to be learned from hearing their experiences. I don't want to go on forever about this because I am obviously not the expert on subject, and I am not the most eloquent when it comes to this sort of thing. And like I said, this is a welcome and open and friendly place, so please feel free to reach out to me, any of you guys. You know, all my social media stuff is below here. I'm on Ravelry and Instagram and YouTube, and those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me, so that is all. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I hope I will be back on YouTube again soon. Bye.